All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting connected here for a new show. So if you're watching on Facebook right now or YouTube, thank you for tuning in. I'm doing a special episode of the podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and cue our intro music and we will get started in the broadcast. Let's go.
Kom schon schönes Mädchen, komm doch noch rüber. Schönes Mädchen, lass mich wieder. Komm schon schönes Mädchen, komm doch mal her. Schönes Mädchen, lass mich mehr alleine tanzen. Tanzen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough of the intro. Thank y'all for tuning in with me tonight. I wanted to do something a little different. Normally, our show is on Fridays, but with all that's going on, I wanted to take an opportunity to address some of those things. Here at New Wave, my whole philosophy is I want to make sure that this podcast is speaking to my mission and my goal, which is to empower my people to either live, the best life that you can live, basically. Um, and when we take a moment and we look at everything that's going on around the United States and in the world, we can't help but to pause and take a deep breath and kind of stop for a moment and say, like, where are we and what is really going on? Um, the riots in the United States, particularly Atlanta. I want to talk about Atlanta because this is my city. I am born and raised here, and this city is predominantly African American, right? And so the city, not the state, don't misquote me. The city of Atlanta is primarily black. And so when you start to talk about and you start pulling back the layers of what's going on in response to George Floyd's murder, you have to ask yourself, okay, so we have protesters and we have people that want their voice to be heard, but are they really thinking about the consequences of that of what they're doing now with the riots, right? So for a moment, I hope that people that are on the streets right now tonight. Well, let me step back. So as of right now, there was a curfew implemented here in Georgia for uh, the state of Georgia for people to stay off of the streets, and that came in part due to the protests, not necessarily the protests, but the rioting and the looting, right? Because I want to make sure we're talking about two different things because one is protest and the other one is rioting and looting. So let me get my comments open here just in case we got some people on the live stream. I want to make sure I'm not losing any of the comments here on the live stream. So um, let's see here. You're on YouTube too. Yep, we are on YouTube as well. Supposed to be. Let me go over to YouTube and make sure we're streaming there as well. This is affectionately going to be titled episode number 2, addressing the riot and looting that's going on in the United States right now. Because I can't just say one place because it's going on everywhere. Let's just make sure our stream is strong here on YouTube. Do, 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 do. One day we'll have a producer that can make sure we're where we need to be on all of these interfaces here so I don't have to do that. And apparently we're not on YouTube. Do. All right. We're going to just do what we do. Let's see here. Let's open up my thingy here. I just want to make sure that this is streaming everywhere it's supposed to be streaming. Yeah, it says it's live on YouTube, but I don't see anything. So, anyway, hold on. Let's get our chat overlay here. Oh, okay. That's straight up tripping right now. It's my first time using this streaming site here where it kind of syndicates out. But it looks like we're having some problems on YouTube. Can you see me on YouTube? I don't think I'm on YouTube. Okay, so I'm not live on YouTube, but I'm live on Facebook. That is a first. That is a first, an absolute first. All right. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get into the point I want to share tonight. If you're watching this show, got to it some kind of way, whether it's shared on Facebook or YouTube, and you are contemplating going out to riots tonight. Well, first of all, it's against the law now in Georgia to even be outside your house because the governor has instituted a curfew. Outside the curfew, if you're still planning to go out in other parts of the country and you're watching this, I want you to just think for a moment about the mission. If you're going to do something with such vigor and such passion, I personally believe that there should be a plan behind it. And rioting and looting doesn't necessarily have a plan outside of sowing chaos. The Atlanta mayor, Keisha Lance Bottom, said it the best the other day, yesterday evening. She said, you're tearing down your own, as far as Atlanta, right? As far as Atlanta, you're tearing down your own house. Killer Mike stated the same sentiments. You're tearing down your own house. Now, I don't necessarily advocate rioting and looting at all, right? But if you're going to riot and loot, truly, my opinion, take it to the people that you're trying to affect change against, not innocent businesses, not businesses where people have sold their last, in some cases, to open their own business. Whether white, black, Asian, Mexican, whatever they identify as, you do not have the right in anybody's name to destroy someone else's property that did not inflict what it is that you're rioting and protesting, right? But government agencies and politicians and people that are accountable for affecting change, to me, I feel that's how you move the needle. That's how you go forward. You don't go forward by attacking innocent people as far as businesses, but you go forward by attacking, and let me make sure you understand what I'm saying. I'm not advocating attacking politicians physically, but I'm saying attacking them in the voting booth, attacking them in the policies that they are lobbying for, attacking them when it comes time to allow your voice to be heard at city council meetings or open hearings at the state capitol, or providing monies to organizations that support your mission. There are so many associations around the United States that have a cause that you can donate to in order to affect the change that you want. I'm not saying that rioting and looting is acceptable or not acceptable, because I have the responsibility as a black man to look at this situation from all perspectives. From the perspective of being the black man that could potentially be gunned down in the street and leaving behind my wife and 2 children. I understand the anger that comes along with that. And I understand looking at the history of our country and looking at how the people, and when I say the white people, some white people at that particular time, we're talking about Well, I'm gonna quote a time period where a black family could wake up at any moment to a burning cross in their front yard. They could wake up at any moment to a brick being thrown through their window. They could wake up at any moment to a noose being put on their steps. So to paint with a broad brush that rioting and looting is wrong, I'm not willing to make that step. But what I am willing to say is rioting and looting should have, as crazy as crazy it may sound, as I'm gonna say, it should have a purpose. If you are going to riot and loot, you as a black person, because this podcast is mostly for black people that's watching this, that's listening to this podcast or watching the live stream. You as a black person going into your own community and destroying it is the definition of an oxymoron. That's oxymoronic to destroy your own house in the name of one of our own. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. So if you are thinking about going out and looting, primarily in the city of Atlanta, in a predominantly black city, you really need to reevaluate your values, because you're misguided. You're misguided. But I do believe that anger exists. The same anger that you have, I share. The same sentiments that you feel when you hear about another African American person, whether male or female, being gunned down in the street without any justice. And here's what I will also say: slow justice is just as bad as no justice. Period. If we cannot get the same amount of expediency in our cases as our other counterparts, then things are off kilter. They're off balance. And so that's why we see a lot of people in the streets. But I hope that the people that come by this podcast really understand and take a hard look at what it is that we as black people are choosing to accept. I refute the narrative that we have to be viewed as violent and just dangerous. We're angry. We're mad as hell, basically. We're mad as hell, and some people are going the wrong direction. But I hope that we all can evaluate when we get to a point of the real change that needs to happen in this country. The real change. And another perspective that I want all of you to consider is two perspectives, basically. The first perspective is we are still in a pandemic. We are still amongst the racial groups that suffer with the pre-existing conditions that are causing people to die at large numbers. We are still that demographic. We are still those people. So when you're choosing to mass gather like this, that in itself, man, is scary. It's scary because the what can come of this in itself. And then the other aspect of this is the backlash. The things that this rioting and looting is going to give people a opportunity. It's going to give them an opportunity. It's almost like open season. It has the ability, this rioting and looting has the ability to become open season on all black people. It has the ability to do that. We're giving some of us, not all of us. I haven't thrown a brick in anybody's window. I haven't ran out of anything at Target. I didn't steal the train from Minneapolis Mall. But we are all black. And stereotypes has no exception in the black community. Well, on the other side, stereotyping black people. There's no exception to that. Other sides do not wager. They just stereotype. So this has the ability to become open season on us if we continue to go about this situation in this way. In the state of Georgia and other states across the United States have now issued curfews. What do you think that means? That's a license to kill. It's a license to inflict whatever they want to inflict now. Because if you live in the city of Atlanta now, you want to go outside after 9 o'clock. Now you're giving the police the right to interfere with you because of the rioting and the climate that has now taken form and taken root. So I just say to everybody who's coming by this podcast, I hope that you share it here on Facebook. But people need to hear this, man. Don't give them the license to kill us at an accelerated rate, because if we don't stop the rioting and looting, trust and believe they will retaliate. Don't get it twisted, man. The absence of a bullet right now today can be gone tomorrow. Everybody, I think that the climate right now is, the tolerance is at a all-time high, because people understand. I think the majority of Americans understand why we as African Americans are so angry. Hell, they are angry too. African Americans are not the only people that are hurting by this. I've reviewed so many comments across the world. I mean, I said the world, not just the United States. So people in our purest form, humans and mankind in our purest form, are loving, caring. Hate is taught. Hate is not something that we're born with. You're not born with hate. You're taught hate. You're taught anger. All of those things you're taught. Those are behavioral traits. You learn them throughout this thing we call life. But I hope every last one of my people understand how important it is to advocate with a mission, with a plan, because that's what it's going to take for us to turn the page. I was talking to a good friend today that I hope that he will come on the podcast. He gave me his commitment that he will, and he's always been a man of his word, so I know he's going to come on the podcast. But we talked about some things in our conversation that really should have been this episode, about how, and that's going to be one of my next podcasts. It's going to be entitled Why So Much Hatred? That's going to be the title to the podcast. So I hope that you will subscribe. Go to YouTube, type in New Wave Real Talk, and subscribe, because that show is going to break down so many layers. Because racism, social injustice, civil rights, this is all a combination. And so when I said earlier that I understand both sides, I really do. I understand. I mean, I'm black. I walk in this body every single day. I have been stereotyped. I have been discriminated against. So I understand all of that. And hell, I live in Atlanta for the most part. So if racism and stereotyping and discrimination can happen to me in Atlanta, for sure it can happen everywhere else. So I get that. Nobody's arguing that point. But choose how you demonstrate. Do you choose chaos that has no resolve, except pretty soon bullets are going to start flying, which the president of the United States have already given license to? Or do we now take a hold of this thing and actually now do something with it? I hope and pray that it's the latter. I really do. Because that's how we get somewhere else. So my message is clear. if you are attempting to go out and loot and riot, no matter where you are, just think about the consequences that it can inflict, not only on you, but for every other African American in this country. Because this, trust me, guys, and mark my words, if we're not careful, we will have consequences from this. Every action, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Period. That simple. So, what we sow into the atmosphere, what we do, we will have to reap it at some point. So let's try to take this thing and make it a positive. We can do it. We've African Americans, we are some of the most resilient. We are absolutely some of the most resilient people on the planet. We get tired, we get pissed off, we get sick and tired. That's what we are now. We're sick and tired of having to have this conversation. We're sick of tired we're sick of tired of creating a hashtag. We're sick and tired of no justice. It's simple. But we need the politicians to understand that. We need the people that fabricate the laws to understand that. I advocate everybody to go out and watch the last conference, the Revolt conference. I think it was called the Revolt, with Killer Mike, T.I., and other social activists. Go and watch it on YouTube. It's very insightful. Because I think that Killer Mike, his philosophy of togetherness, is how we win this fight. That's how we win it. We don't win it by being opposite of our counterparts. We win it by being in lockstep. So that's pretty much the show tonight, guys. I hope that this podcast, this episode number 2, give you some different perspective, because we need it. We do. We need justice, but we also got to make sure we're thinking logical about what it is and the way we're going to go about affecting the change. So my prayers with all of my brothers and sisters across the United States, and I hope and pray that this is the last time. But I know in my heart that we're just beginning. We have to stay the course, but we have to do it sensibly. We do. So thank y'all for tuning into the podcast, and that's going to be it. You can definitely get this over on SoundCloud, Apple, I think Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. You can download this episode and take it with you. Share it with your friends and family. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.